important to have the card we're working with, isn't it? Hi. Hello and welcome, seekers. Today I am going to continue with my tarot series, talking about the major and the minor arcana, and we're going to follow up now with number 2, or I guess more like number 1, with the Magician. Remember that this series is some basic level information and instruction, like an introduction to the tarot cards. I highly recommend getting to know the tarot cards yourself and finding some additional resources so you can really get comfortable and get to know tarot with your own understanding. That way I wouldn't just rely here, because we're going to do some really bare bone kind of, yeah. So we're going to be talking about some of the imagery and the symbolism within the cards, some different ways to interpret the cards, things like that. All right, with that said, let's get into the Magician. Keywords when we think of the Magician are, think of power, construction, creating change, active manifestation, achieving goals, learning or mastering a new skill, a supporter or advisor, person in someone's life, or that a role that you take, success, and the active consciousness. So let's start with the numerology. We have the number 1 now assigned to I gave myself like a really big forehead, I swear. So the number assigned to the Magician is number 1. So this represents taking your first steps, taking actions. It's not just that thinking about something or that brainstorming anymore. It's the first actionable steps. We're talking about constructive action, not just thinking or planning or brainstorming. Like I said, we're advancing forward past the decision, which is more mental, with our physical actions. Beat up our ideas. Some history or theology and some illustrations of the Fool that I talked about in the last video. Oliver, come here, sweetie. No, you can't go in there. Oh, but you need to use the bathroom. Okay. Here. There, it's open. Cat couldn't get into the bathroom. For his bathroom. Okay. All right, well, if you're in here, I'm going to shut the door. So, the Fool that we talked about before, in the past, isn't always assigned 0. Sometimes it's assigned Oliver. Sometimes it's assigned nothing. But in some depiction, it actually has the Hebrew letter Aleph. So Aleph in the Hebrew alphabet doesn't carry a sound. It's kind of a stand-in letter. Following that, the Magician, instead of a 1, has Beit, which is the first letter to have a sound in the Hebrew alphabet. It's also the first letter in the Torah, or in the book of Genesis. So we're going to talk about this a bit later, but that's interesting because this card has a lot of creation involved in it. It has a lot of connecting the heavens and the earth. And it gets really interesting, but we'll get into that a little bit later. As far as elements go, we're looking at earth and or air. There's some disagreements. I personally like to assign both. This card works a lot with connecting spirit with the physical. I think it makes more sense to have both the element air and earth working in this card together. I hope you guys can hear that. There's just like spitting happening in the other room. And the cats keep opening the door. But again, this earth and air, above, below, spiritual, physical, these themes are a big theme. It's a big part of the Magician. So to me, it makes sense for the elements for the Magician to be both air and earth. This also, again, the air and the earth connects that consciousness, that mind, which we associate with air, and the action and manifestation that we typically associate with earth. All right, for our planet, we have Mercury. Mercury is a planet of communication and logic. Mercury is typically connected with the element earth in a lot of Western philosophy, so we'll say, we're just going to leave it at that. It's connected with earth, which makes it grounded in yin energy, which is interesting because that's typically more passive, while this is a very active card and a lot of active energy. Mercury is also associated with intellect and cleverness, and working with the mind and the active consciousness. Remember the Fool, we had some bits talking about the unconscious or the subconscious, but now we're moving into what's in front of us and the consciousness. with Mercury having these associations with intellect, with communication, again, working with the mind and the consciousness. There's also this association of there being an alliance between our reasoning and our faith that things will work out. So between spirit and our logical mind. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to talk about the imagery of the magician. We take a look at the magician and we see in his right hand is directed up and his left hand is directed down. A lot of the times we associate this with a lightning rod imagery, right? So he's connecting the above with the below, with himself being a conduit for bringing spirit and consciousness down into the physical realm, which also means that the magician himself, themselves, herself, whoever, has to be opened up to spirit, has to understand spirit. Hi.
Are you still live?
I'm never live. We don't do that here. I don't trust myself enough. We see that he's holding a white wand. This white wand, we see the color white, we see that he's holding a white wand. He's directing that with his right hand. I had to mirror that for a second, but he's directing with his right hand, and it's a white wand. In color associations, color magic, whatever, when we have white, it is representing, we talked about purity, but also Oliver, but also a connection to spirit, to the divine, to a higher self, higher consciousness, God, universe. So the color white in general, we're associating with spirituality, purity, and divinity. You can notice that unlike the Fool, he's using this wand, right? The Fool just had it kind of, what's the word I'm thinking of? Lackadaisically had it over his shoulder without a problem and no care in the world about what it can do. But the magician's now using it. Wands in general represent goals, discipline, personal power, personal energy, our personalities, there are egos, determination, creativity, and inspiration. And in this case, it's directing that internal power. We're directing and using our personal power, again, in line with that action of doing something, not just in the mind, but actually doing it. We can take a look at what he's wearing. So he's wearing these white and red robes. We have the colors of red and white associated with power, with purity. So there's this newness, this inexperience that the magician has. It's giving student with that white, but also with this power that they're learning and they're tapping into, right? So there's, I don't know what I was going to say with that, but anyway, we're in this state of learning. We have all this power and this newness to the power. That makes sense. Around his waist, if you can see it, is actually a serpent belt. It's standing in for the Ouroboros, or the snake that eats itself. The snake that eats itself. And this is Oliver. You're driving me crazy. This is a symbol of being connected to the universal consciousness, the natural way of things, the endings and the beginnings, right? This is the way the world works. This is the way nature works, and we're tapped into that. The Ouroboros is also actually associated with Mercury, so we're still getting the power of Mercury reflected in the imagery of the magician card. Up next, we can talk about the infinity symbol. There's a word for this somewhere, and I can't remember, but this infinity halo the magician has over their head. It's another symbol of divinity. There's a lot of symbols of divinity in this one, but more in particular being connected with divinity. A lot of times when we have saints or depictions of anybody who's thought to have a higher standing or a higher connection with their higher power, their higher consciousness, the universe, or God, they're usually depicted with some form of a halo. And this one is mirroring the Ouroboros snake that we had below. We also have a canopy over their head. Canopies are another symbol of being under, the watchful eyes of divinity and connecting with the divine. But they're used in a lot of ceremonies. Wedding ceremonies, there's going to be a canopy or a focal point, a point that the point. But it's another symbol of bringing the spiritual down to the physical. They're places of importance that makes things more ritualistic when we're connecting our actions to that spiritual perspective. But even in not religious or not spiritual wedding, especially if it's outside. There's usually still a canopy that we do things under, and that's part of this idea of, you know, you're doing this action and connecting it with the spiritual realm, this other connection. Also, these red roses and white lilies. We have a lot of red roses up top in place of these miraculous power, right? This power that's coming down. And then we also have these white lilies. Roses are well known to be symbols for passion and power. In this case, he's surrounded by all this power. And the lilies coming from the lilies coming from the ground are white and representing that purity against that newness. He also has this table that has each of the 4 suits representing the 4 elements, right? He has the wand that's more representative, that looks more like the wand from the Fool. He has the cup or the chalice there, a pentacle, and a sword. So these are in place to represent all the elements, right? These forces in nature that he has before him. And it's looking it's looking more like a workbench. So these are things that he's supposed to be using, right? These are in his power to create. Important point to what I just messed up my words over. The magician's not God, right? He's not this divine being. He's a stand-in. He's trying to use his power. So he's not creating from nothing. He's creating from what he's given. He's creating from something that's already existing. It's something he already has, his own power, his own natural gifts that he's using. So to create something, you gotta be a little clever. You gotta be a little adaptable. You gotta work with what you have. We're connecting that back to, again, Mercury, with that cleverness, that logic, that intellect to adapt and to figure things out on your own. And to create something physical, something real, and that's of value. Not necessarily monetary value, but something that in our society or to yourself has real value in your life or in people's lives. We are once again surrounded by yellow. Yellow is also associated with Mercury. I'm just going to keep using the word associated because every time I try to use a different word, I mess it up. It's representative of intellect. I said of twice. Intellect, clarity, and communication. Again, back to Mercury. It also represents clear thinking, effective communication, and is connected with our solar plexus chakra. I can't reach it. I'm not standing up. Solar plexus chakra, which is where we supposed to carry our sense of self, our identity, our individual will, our ego. It also stands in for new beginnings, how we rebirth ourselves, how we transform ourselves with clarity, right? With assertiveness. It's with self-confidence and energy, because we have to do it ourselves. We have to have the willpower to do it. And that's with our solar plexus chakra, that's with the color yellow, that's with Mercury, and that's with the magician that he's surrounded by. Okay, so let's talk about a couple different ways to read the magician card when it pops up. As an individual, I see the magician as someone, if it's someone else who's not the person you're reading for, someone who's supportive. They're, like an advisor, in that kind of position, or in a person who's in a position to move forward. They're doing well. Whether it's a promotion, a new level of study, they're just in a place of success, and that success is due from their own focus and determination and willpower. They've worked hard to be in this position to move forward. The magician is a effective person, very effective, with a well-defined sense of purpose. Their sense of what they're doing is very strong. This is also a good, healthy person, both physically in their body and mentally and spiritually, all those things. More in general, if we're moving away from an individual, when this card pops up, there's work that's still left to be done. There might be something a bit laborious that's needing to happen. It's an awareness of this power that you have in your life, this new spirit and this new excitement about something that you can feel that you have. It's about taking first steps beyond the decision of the Fool that we talked about. We're still new, right? We're still in this new position, and we still have all these possibilities that we could think about in the Fool, but now we're doing something about it, right? This is more action oriented. We're taking those actions to work on something or to learn something. There's a lot of learning and trying to master that comes with the magician. There might be a lot of inspiration and motivation to meet a goal when the magician pops up, and definitely a lot of strength. We'll see yellow again in the background like this, loud. I didn't pay my nose, I swear I was scratching. When the strength card appears, which is, and you need strength with the magician, right? Because again, there's all this energy that we have with this card that's coming from above. We're using it on our own intuitively with whatever we have, and it's being channeled in a specific direction to do work, to get something done. What on earth? All right, well, that was weird. I'm getting interrupted a lot today. I don't know what the cat just like flew across the room. Again, talking about those reverse cards, I know before I talked about how I don't typically always read reversed, like when they pop up reversed. So, if I do a reading and it comes at me like this, I'm very itchy. I don't always take that as like I must read the reverse sign of this card. Sometimes it comes this way and I just get a feeling that it's not quite what it means. Sometimes it comes up this way and I do it this way anyway. It depends. Some people, I got out of breath. Some people do read it strictly reversed, and I do think it's still important to talk about these reversed meanings. So here we go. So when the magician pops up in reverse, I'm getting a lot of confusion. There's a lack of purpose. A person is feeling weak. There's a weakness in their life that they're not able to move forward because they're not strong enough. Maybe it's a depression, mental, physical, spiritual, something that's getting in the way of being able to use their natural gifts. There could also be an abuse of power. Instead of using power in this beneficial way, in this way to learn, in this way to connect, it could be destructive. There could be a lot of fear, a lot of mental disquiet. We need a lot of clarity to be in this position. Again, to be that conduit, you need to be strong, you need to be clear. Maybe something's not quite that clear and something's bringing you down. Reversed is destruction as opposed to construction. Channeling not from spirit, but more from the self, more from the ego, or a darker place than that. Reverse can also, though, be the opportunity to be reborn and to transform, to use that and acknowledge, like, this isn't a great place. What can I do about it? So in that case, it's a time to step back, maybe get more in touch with reality, reassess, take a break, and then come back with clarity, hopefully, and a newfound sense of self. Or sometimes, I get when the magician pops up in reverse, its goals changing too quickly. So there could be a lack of follow through or commitment to be able to achieve these goals. Nothing's easy that's worth it, right? Nothing that we really want to do is ever really easy. There has to be work that you put in. And if you don't put in that work, or you don't follow through with it, then, it's not going to work. Or you get antsy. I get antsy all the time. I pick things up and it maybe doesn't happen as quick as I wanted to, so I change to something else. But then I'm just left with a bunch of unfinished projects. And it's a little bit bigger than that, because we all have unfinished projects, I'm sure. This is a little bit bigger. These are more life goal related things. Or I'm going off on a tangent because we could go on forever with each and every one of these cards. But anyway, so when I read the magician, my first instinct is to say, you have everything you need to excel, right? You have everything you need to succeed in front of you. That doesn't mean that, you're done, but you've taken the step to be more ready, or at least you're in a position to be ready to do whatever it is you want to do. The elements are there. You can start to create or manifest whatever it is that you're after in life. You're ready, you're there. But there might be things that you got to learn, right? There's still work to put in. So you're ready, but you're ready to also listen. You're ready to find this balance between what you don't know and knowing that it's not necessarily from like a darker place of naivety. It's a balance between, having the confidence and not confusing that with, what's the word? Like high and mighty, having a bad ego about it. There's a lot of things going on, but it's definitely a positive card, right? Immediately, I think success. I think we're getting there. There's just work to be done. So that is it for the magician. Please remember to like this video and subscribe for more tarot videos. Leave a comment below with your own interpretation of the magician or what you thought of this video, along with any other videos you'd like to see. I'm hoping to, as I go through all the many tarot cards that we have to go through in this series, to also include some other witchcraft related videos in terms of what I personally do for my practice. So let me know if you're interested in that. And yeah. All right, with that, I hope everyone's doing well, and wander off, friends.